This is Karen Johnson. This is part of Proctor's Oral History Project, and today's date is September 23rd, 2013. We have as our guests today Orlando and Eleaner Pigliavento, who are arts people from way back. And maybe you could start by telling me about your business and how you've been in the arts business for quite a few years.
Over 60, yeah. Yeah. You want me to tell her?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. We started in 1954. Was it 54, 50s? 54, 55, the dates are a little bit. Right down here on State Street, I think it was 410 at the time. We were on the third floor when we opened our studio there. And then I think we were there about a year or two, and then we moved around to Broadway, and we were there for a while, and then we moved up to our current location where we've been for over 50 years.
So you haven't told me yet what you do.
Dance studio, tap, ballet, jazz, yep, and we've been involved with the Schenectady Light Opera for well over 30 years, 40 years maybe, long time. And we were involved here at Proctor's for many, many years.
When you say you were involved at Proctor's, what did you do here, and when was that?
Well, we ran our recitals here. That was the first thing we did. And then when Dennis Madden was the executive director, we did the Christmas shows, the organ shows with Alan Mills. Alan and Jackie Mosier was the producer. And we did those for a long time.
So let's go back to the recitals just before we move on. You did recitals. Do you remember when you started doing that? Was it after Axe took over the theater from Mr. Matarazzo?
Yes, had to be after that. It had to be. We've been doing recitals at Proctor's for over 35, 36 years, over that.
And so you mentioned that the conditions were quite primitive. What did you find when you came here in the earliest days?
Very primitive. Very primitive. They didn't have their own sound system. We used to bring our own sound system. They didn't have any of the sound things that they have today. And the stage area was, it was very workable, but I mean, it was nothing like it is today. Today they have a great staff back there, and it's run very professionally today.
So there were people working there when you had a recital, but they were kind of temporary?
Yeah, they worked exclusively. They worked the stage, but they worked for you. At the end of each performance, you would write each individual a separate check.
Okay.
So they'd line up and you'd write them a check. Okay, it was nothing like it is today. Today it's
you pay a rental fee, and that
you
don't write any checks except one, perhaps.
Right, that's right. Actually, they write you a check.
So what has this change in the facilities here really enabled you to do differently? Do you want to comment on that? Or you can toss it back, either one.
Yeah.
He's got the gift of gab.
The big difference now is in what you can do with the lighting and the globos and all that kind of stuff. It's, and if you wanted to do scenery and stuff, they're well equipped to do all of that. We don't particularly go that way, but they're very good. They're very good. It's very professional now. When you come in, there are people there ready to go and fulfill your wishes, you know what I mean? And it usually works very smoothly. Of course, the sound system is great, and it's a primo facility now. It's everything is very professional.
Now, you also had a daughter who was involved in theater. Oh, excuse me.
Two.
So tell me about them.
Debbie and Michelle. They grew up in the studio, took their dance with us, and then they got involved in singing. And then when they finished college, they went to New York City and got into the business, musical theater.
Exciting.
And they had a good career in that. Both of them did.
Now, where are they now?
They run
at
our
the
business.
studio. They're teaching now.
So you don't have to work quite so much anymore.
We don't do any teaching anymore.
Yeah.
Eleanor's been out of it for a good 10 years.
Yeah.
I've been out of it for 2, I think.
Okay.
But
You know, they bring a new picture to the thing, you know, being younger and their things they did in the city, you know, and so they have all different ideas.
I remember many civic things they did when they just came back from New York. They
Yeah.
were quite exciting young women.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you were talking about when you worked with the organ shows.
yes,
Tell me more about
Alan
that.
Mills. Alan was a great musician, and the show was built around him and the organ. Remember when, I think it was the Golub Corporation that donated the organ to Proctors? The shows were built around that. So anything we did had to be with organ music. And Alan was the center of the show. And Jackie Mosier produced it. And Jackie, as you know, was terrific. And we started with them. It was, I gotta refer to name, Dennis. Dennis called me one day, and I didn't really know him, but I think we did I think what happened is we opened the Scotia Center that on the riverfront there.
Freedom Park.
Yes, I think Dennis produced that, and was very involved at that before he came here. And we were in that opening production. Okay, we had a group of girls and I did a number, so we were involved with that. But he called me anyway when he was at Proctors, and they wanted to form a group of dancers for Proctors. So we formed, Eleaner and I did, we formed the Off-Broadway Babies.
Yeah.
And that was the name was, they had a contest to name it. Do you remember Doug Delisle from
Yes.
Doug?
Troy Record, I believe.
That's right. Doug was the guy who came up with the name Off-Broadway Babies. And the girls were from the Capital Region, not just our students. Anybody who auditioned and could do what we wanted to do was involved. They were a beautiful bunch of girls. I've got pictures of them if you want to see. They were terrific. Let me show you.
Maybe we can
Yeah, we could.
get some of these
These were all
pictures
shot
and
at.
drop them into our history.
Right, they were all shot here at in the theater, in various locations of the theater. The girls were beautiful, did a great job.
Just let me mention what we're seeing here are a group of young women in sort of a tails. They look
Yes.
like they're very formally dressed with a hat and pretty good-looking gams.
Yeah, terrific girls. They were really, that was in, I think, 1985. That's when this, we did this big anniversary show. It's here somewhere. There it is. And again, Alan Mills we built everything around Alan. He played organ great, and he was also a terrific singer, but he was he was a great musician. When we did our Christmas shows with Alan, we must have done half a dozen or more Christmas shows where we brought in a guest artist, and we had a chorus of people from the community, and Alan conducted it. And of course the Off-Broadway Babies were always a part of that.
So this, what you're showing me is a benefit, and then, so you had a few benefits you were involved
Oh, yeah.
with Alan Mills, because of constant need of money here, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right.
And also the Christmas shows, which Jackie and Dennis put forward, and they were very, very popular.
Right.
I never saw one, but
Yep.
from what I heard.
And they did very well financially. They did very well. It was fun. They were great shows to do. And with Alan at the center of things, as I said, we built it all around him. And it worked out well. We did that for, as I said, at least a half a dozen years. And it was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in recent years, well, there was a time when light opera put on shows here also.
Right.
What do you remember about that?
The problems, that was going back to that era when there was always a question of using your people as opposed to using the people that were in place. So that was always a problem. But it worked out. Light Opera must have done at least a half a dozen shows here or more. In fact, the last one they did here was in 2007, where they used the GE Theater. Okay. Before that, the last time would have been back a ways. But Light Opera did a couple of shows. The thing about using this theater is you had all those seats available.
Right.
And we did a production of Annie here that I think still is the highest selling show that they've ever done. It was, it was terrific. But we did, Light Opera was very active here, and without that, they probably would have been, but there were always issues, between the organizations.
And then there got to be issues about what shows Proctor were presenting professionally. I
That's right.
realize that, but as long as it lasted, it was quite a benefit for Light Opera.
Oh, it was, definitely.
Even with all the little things around the edge.
Absolutely. It was great. Those of us who directed and performed in them loved working here at Proctor's. I mean, it was, as professional as you can get without going to New York or something, The theater was always magical.
Well, that hasn't happened for a while, and part of it is I think the schedule here is so busy now that
That's right.
when you have a non-professional production, you have to also have a lot of rehearsals.
That's right. That's right.
And it ties up the stage, but I know we're working with a lot of the organizations now to sell their tickets and
Yeah.
help them.
Right.
Now, are you still involved with Light Opera?
Marginally. I haven't done a show, and I think the last show I did was two years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But I find I'm not as willing to give up the time now as I used to be.
Okay. Well, now, Eleanor, did you grow up in Schenectady, or did
I'm from Troy.
he found you in another spot?
Yeah, Troy, the city of Troy.
Well, do you have any early memories of coming to Proctor's in Schenectady, or was there something like that? Or there was a Proctor's in Troy and probably some other theaters.
I really never came to Schenectady, to Proctor's, until I met Orlando. I came over for dance lessons from the studio where he studied. And that's how I met him. And things,
Developed.
Yeah.
Well, did you grow up in Schenectady?
Yes. Yep.
What are your really early memories of Proctor's?
Proctor's was great. I mean, I remember the lines down the street, to see the movies. And I can remember sitting in an aisle in the balcony to watch Lassie Come Home. I mean, the place
Because
would
it
be
was
packed.
Really?
Yeah. And we used to go to the movies. I had a sister and a brother who passed away, but she had a unique laugh, so I could come to Proctor's and stand in the back and wait for something funny to happen and find her, and then because she had the money. So,
Okay.
But what Proctor's was, anybody who lived in Schenectady, Proctor's was one of the big theaters that you would attend.
Do you remember about what time period that was when you started coming here?
Absolutely, it would have been in the 40s. Sure, would have been it would have been in the 40s.
So
Late
that,
30s, 40s. Sure, all during the war years. Absolutely.
and were there just tons of young people coming here? To,
all the time. Sure. This was downtown was the center of the action. I mean, it was like going to the mall, right? Downtown
So
was
you
it.
not only could see the movie, but all your friends.
Oh, absolutely. You walk the streets, you're going to walk into people you know.
Someone told me that there were young men who were the ushers, all dressed in uniform.
Sure, absolutely.
And they were very cute boys, and that's why they came.
But
You might not have had that. same-
Right. The State Theater just down the street was a nice theater, and the Palace, the Plaza up the street. As a kid, we used to do recitals at the Plaza, and beautiful theaters in those days. Yep.
Good. And was the States Theater someplace you went also?
Oh, sure. That was right down on the corner down there, and there was a beautiful theater in there has been long gone. Was the Erie, and that was actually a Broadway theater, and shows used to try out in that theater. It was a beautiful theater, well equipped.
Where approximately was that?
It's a parking lot now.
On
Yeah.
State Street?
Yeah. No, the entrance was State Street, but the theater was really on Erie.
Okay.
But the entrance was, you'd go in the arcade. It was an arcade just like this, like Proctors. And the theater was in the right going in. And they tore that down a long time ago. But
You
that
don't-
was a legitimate theater.
You don't remember what it cost to come here, do you?
No, no. But it was cheap because we could come and we didn't have any money. Right.
Can you think of anything else we'd like to talk about that
I don't, let's see.
look through this book?
Yeah, I made some notes about things. I don't know if I touched them all. I told you about the Lyle, the New Yorkin.
Here's a dancing troupe steals show at Gala. That must be your group.
That was our group.
And they
yeah.
made 15,000 in 1985, which was a pretty good buck at
That's
that
right.
time.
That's right. And that show was centered on Alan. Alan was the whole purpose of the Off-Broadway Babies was if Proctors had any events that that they wanted to beef up in some way, they'd bring the girls in. In fact,
And-
one.
And you choreographed
Oh
them?
yeah,
and-
Alan, both of us.
Yeah.
Both
Okay,
of us.
both of
We're
them.
co-choreographers. I'd do some numbers, she'd do some numbers, But one time they did they had an escape artist, a local escape artist, who could do the Houdini trick of escaping out of the water. And he could do it. He did it fine, but he had no. He had no pizzazz with it, you know what I mean? They didn't really know how to stage it. And we backed that up with the girls too. But
And
a lot of stuff
covered
like
up for his inadequacies.
a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. I'll never forget his wife running through the audience saying, "Hurry, hurry, he's not making it." And of course, he was already out,
That was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, it was. It was actually very, very comical. He did a thing where he had a rabbit in a cage or something, and he hung the sign in front, but the sign dropped. But it wasn't there.
The rabbit was gone?
He made it escape. He did.
So backstage is a lot more exciting than out front.
Backstage can be very exciting. Backstage can be very exciting, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you learn a lot of things.
Yeah.
See
yeah.
if there's anything else you wanted to talk about.
Well, the thing that always impressed me about Proctors is it's made enormous progress since those early days, as you well know. I mean, it's been phenomenal to watch that building of the new stage and all that. I mean, it's incredible. That you come up with the volunteers, the people that run these boards. I mean, these are the guys that make it happen. No question about that. And it's great. It's a great community effort that they had the foresight to see that this was something worth keeping and holding on to and building.
You know what always interests me about it is there wasn't just one person who led the charge.
That's right.
There were many people.
Many.
And even though you hear stories about how Kay Rosendahl paid the backstage out of her purse, which you can imagine in the early days,
Yeah.
there were many, many other people who took strong roles,
That's
and
right.
yourselves among them.
That's right. Somebody like Marianne Lamel, do you remember her? She was
Yes.
great. I mean, she ran that group of volunteers like an army. I mean, it was terrific. And look at all the volunteers they have there. They used to have a waiting list. I don't know if they still do.
Well, we've almost got so much programming, the waiting list is smaller, but
Okay.
there is a lot of interest in
Yeah,
volunteering.
yeah. And without the volunteers, you don't have it.
Right. Well, there's just been tremendous community support of this theater, and
Absolutely.
I think we're all lucky that it all came together so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It's the only theater in the Tri-City area that brings professionals in.
Well, no, the Palace in Albany does, but nothing really compares
No,
to this venue.
No.
This venue is, I mean, you can compare it to venues all over the country. This is a great venue. I mean, it's something the city really should be proud of. You know, when you bring these companies in here, there's practically nothing they can't do here that they can do New York or anyplace else. It's amazing. And Phil Morris has done a remarkable job. I mean, it's incredible, you know. But it's been great.
That sounds like a good ending for our talk. And I'd like to thank those who are going to be watching this, and thank you very much for being here today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
He can talk. I listen.